And welcome to episode 4 of the Dolphin Pod. This is the exclusive CSI Dolphins Athletics podcast. I'm your host, Joe Foreman, still hoping to get a co-host or some guest co-hosts in the future. But for now, I am continuing to ride solo here on the show. And we do have a recap of quite a bit of action since our last Dolphin Pod. Our last episode premiered back on January 5th, fresh off of the holiday recess. It has been 20 days since episode 3, and we have a lot of action to recap since that time. So we will get started with men's basketball. The Dolphins hosted a weekend of games here at the Tank, beginning back on Friday, January 6th, through Sunday, January 8th. Both the men and the women took the court for CSI. First, they faced Damon University on Friday night. For the women in that game against the Wildcats, they suffered a 64-45 loss. As for the men, they suffered a loss as well, 79-75, a much closer game for the men. For the men, they were able to bounce back and pick up a win in Sunday's game against Deauville University by a final score of 92-70. The Dolphins with one of their best halves of the season in the second half of that game. As for the women, they dropped a close one to the Saints by a final score of 57-52, their second consecutive loss. Following the games against Damon and Deauville on Friday, January 6th and Sunday, January 8th, the Dolphins took on Queens College on Wednesday, January 11th. For the women, it was a 66-55 loss, and for the men, it was an 82-74 loss against the Knights. The next game for both teams came against Malloy University. They returned home to the Tank for their matchups with the Lions. First, for the women, it was a decisive 17-point win over Malloy. For the Dolphins, they had one of their best defensive efforts of the season, holding the Lions just over 40 points. As for the men, they completed a sweep in that Saturday afternoon doubleheader. The Dolphins defeated the Lions 84-70. On the men's side. As for the men, their next game came in non-conference play on Tuesday, January 17th against Franklin Pierce University. The Dolphins suffered an 8-point defeat in that game. They tried to erase a large second-half deficit, but could not, as the Dolphins came up 8 points short against the Ravens. Next up for both the men and the women was a Saturday matchup with Roberts Wesleyan University. For the women, they narrowly escaped with a 59-56 win. Jenelise Alarcon led the way for the Dolphins in that game with a 25-point, 11-rebound double-double. She earned co-player of the week honors in the East Coast Conference following that performance. As for the men, they suffered an 87-81 loss, their second consecutive defeat. Both the men and women now sit at 3-5 in the East Coast Conference, still firmly in the playoff chase in the ECC. Since January 5th, we've had one swim meet for the CSI men. Their lone meet came on Monday, January 16th, against former CUNYAC rival Baruch College. The Dolphins picked up the big win in that meet, 144-73. As for women's swimming and diving, they've hit the pool twice since our last show. First, they took on Baruch on January 16th alongside the men, and they picked up a win, 116-80. However, the women did take the pool a second time on Friday, January 20th against Hunter College. The Dolphins picked up the win in that meet, 111-101, their first win against the Hawks in quite some time, spanning back several years. As for indoor track and field, they've had a pair of meets since our last show. First was the Spartan Invite, as the Dolphins were back in action for the first time since December 3rd. Once again, it was a strong showing for the Dolphins after several record-setting performances in their first meet of the year. Skylar Pointer once again set a school record in the weight throw. A distance that she achieved of 13.69 meters was good for 8th in the NCAA Division II East region, the third best distance in the ECC, and good for 11th overall in the Spartan Invitational. Ava Thompson achieved a season best distance in the weight throw as well, but perhaps no individual performance more impressive than that of Jasmine Severo in the high jump. She set yet another CSI record and tied for the best mark in the ECC at 1.55 meters. On the track, standout efforts from Julia Calvo and Alexandria Jackson as well. Cole Enslin in the field achieved a distance of 5.68 meters in the long jump as well. That distance good for 29th overall at the Spartan Invite. Just a week later in the Gotham Cup, the Dolphins made their third appearance in that meet. They participated in the Gotham Cup now 3 times following Saturday's outing. And for the Dolphins in that meet, they once again had several standout efforts. Once again, Severo with a good effort in the high jump, tying her school record at 1.55 meters. Skylar Pointer earned 7th in the weight throw as well, coming up just short of her distance at the Spartan Invitational at 13.61 meters. Ava Thompson once again achieved a season best in the weight throw for the Dolphins as well. Ariana Finkelstein rounded out another stellar day in the field for CSI with a distance of 10.07 meters in the shot put and a lifetime best 11.44 meters in the weight throw. Angelina Guerrero posted a time of 1 minute and 11 seconds in the 400 meter as well. Dolphins will next be in action with their first meet away from Ocean Breeze this year as they travel to Middletown, Connecticut for the Wesleyan Indoor Invite next Saturday. And that's a not-so-brief recap of all of the action since our last show back on January 5th. On the other side of this break, we are joined by CSI swimming and diving head coach Mike Ackalitis. He joins us the same day that his Dolphins will host their senior night meet here at the Tank. Be sure to stay with us through this short break. Mike Ackalitis joins us coming up next. And welcome back to the Dolphin Pod. This is episode 4 of our relaunch show, and I am joined on this episode by CSI swimming and diving head coach Mike Ackalitis. Mike, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Fins up, everyone. Fins up. Mike, our first conversation with you here on the Dolphin Pod this season. You have been on the show before, a bit of a different format now, but a lot to look forward to on the all-new Dolphin Pod. Specifically, our new backdrop, we got that in last week. It no longer looks like a hostage video here on the show. We're very excited about that. But with our other coaches that we've had on the show so far, I've opened the conversation typically with their introduction here at CSI and when they got started. I was around when they got started. I was not around when you got started at the end of 2011. How has CSI changed since then? I got started in 2016, so I missed the first half of your tenure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's changed tremendously, and definitely for the better. When I first started the end of 2011, it was the middle of a season. They were going through a lot of changes, and I think since then there's been a tremendous amount of change, whether that's building the dorms on campus or housing students, obviously, and then making the transition from the CUNYAC Conference Division III into the ECC, and swimming has stayed in its Metropolitan Conference as well. And so there's been a tremendous amount of change for the better. We're hoping that targets the student athletes to make this more of a family and campus feel, which is what I think we've done here, and it's been great.
It was a big transition for you, obviously, moving out of the CUNYAC to Division II. What has that been like? Of course, you were part of the City University of New York Athletic Conference. A lot of success there. You moved on to Division II, really without a home. The East Coast Conference does not sponsor swimming. They've been great to us this season, helped us a big deal with the CSI invite, so that was a lot of fun. But what's the transition to Division II been like moving out of the CUNYAC?
Yeah, it's 100% been challenging. There's no doubt about that. I think the timing between the transition and the COVID-19 pandemic has definitely had an effect on all sports as well as swimming. But the ECC has done everything they can to help us out. They sponsor a winter invite between us and Roberts Wesleyan, who are the only 2 teams currently who have swimming and diving, and we're both in that Metropolitan Conference. And the biggest thing is just targeting a larger roster size, student athletes off of Staten Island, and using the student housing and just making this a bigger college community.
A lot of milestones for you along the way from your start back in 2011 until now. One of those achieved this year, 100 wins. How good did that feel, and what are some of the other milestones that stand out to you from along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. Getting 100 win is a tremendous achievement. One 11, 12 years ago I didn't even think about, and with swimming and diving, it's not, dual meet records aren't too much on the mind, but it definitely was a special one because you just reflect on the last decade of being here and all the changes we just talked about. There's been a lot of bright stuff happening now. We're NCAA championship eligible, so we've had a couple of people been close to an NCAA B cut, which means depending on how they fall within the ranks, if they could be invited or not, and we'd hope to accomplish that over the next few years. We did have a couple of those in Division III, so we hope to keep pushing along that mark and get more recognition regionally as well as nationally. And right now we're on pace to do that with a couple of our divers. They've hit some pre-qualifying marks, and hopefully that will be the next step.
So what other goals do you have for the program moving forward in Division II? Of course, the goal set changes, moving from Division III to Division II just a bit. You mentioned some of those, perhaps looking ahead to the Metropolitan Swimming and Diving Championship. What do you hope to achieve there? And overall now, with the provisional period over, what lies ahead for your program in Division II?
Absolutely. When it comes, we have 3 weeks till the Metropolitan Championship. Last year, the men finished 7th. The women finished 13th of about 16 teams. On the women's side, 17 teams, I believe. So we hope to just improve on that mark and just move up in the ranks. And I think we have a really good chance to do that with both programs. And as I just touched on a little bit, one of the major team goals over the next 1 to 3 years is obviously to grow our roster, but also make an impact regionally, get that national recognition, get invited to the big dance, as they say, and hopefully we'll be out in Indianapolis in the next 1 or 2 years.
Well, speaking of recognition, your men's team received a banner for taking the win in the CSI invite. How big of a deal was that meet to you, getting to host that here at CSI, bringing in an opponent from the ECC and Roberts Wesleyan, as well as other schools to take part? I think it went really well. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it definitely did go really well. Swimming is an individual sport as well as a team sport. So individual success is great, but team success is better. I think when you have team success, everyone, the momentum just helps everyone to achieve greater goals. And it was great. We have a nice little, I'd say, friendly rivalry with Roberts Wesleyan College and Roberts Wesleyan University, another ECC school. And
I made that mistake myself on public address. It happens to the best of us.
So, Sarah, the head coach there, has been great. We're kind of in this together, and her women got the best of us, and our men got the best of her. So it's a nice to have that support from the ECC as well as that rivalry, and really come together as a team and challenge each other. And when we get to Metros, I think I don't want to say it's not team success because that's always important, but it is. Let's break some individual school records. Let's break some relay records together, and then with all that, the team's going to succeed. So it's been a tremendous year.
Thoughts on the season thus far? Mix of Division I, Division II, and Division III opponents. Some familiar opponents from the CUNYAC coming in. Took on St. Francis, a Division I school. We know Chase has a lot of familiarity with them, but what are your thoughts on what the team has achieved so far this season, and what's your take on where you guys stand right now?
Yeah, we had some great achievements. It was the first season for me that I've defeated Hunter and Baruch in the same season, so some of our old CUNY rivals, so that definitely felt good, but it was also good to have them on the pool deck again, as well as, facing some Division I's to kind of show the team why can't we be up to their standard. And swimming's a funny sport. When you go on a basketball court and you see Division I, Division II, Division III, you can kind of pick them apart. When it comes to swimming, the possibilities are endless to compete with those teams, and that's eventually 5-10 years down the road where we want to be. Those meets brought out the best in us. We've had a lot of success on the women's side with Jess Johnson breaking 5 or 6 school records. We've had some relay success, some school records, some pool records. So the regional competition, regardless of division, has been great for us. It's brought out the best of us, and we have one last hurdle after tonight's senior meet to go on and hopefully have some more team and individual success at Metros.
Well, for those who get to see the debut of our show tonight, I'm going to try and get it ready ahead of Senior Day. We'll debut it a half hour before the meet.
Awesome.
Talk about your seniors just a bit and what they've meant to your program, what all the seniors who have graduated have gone on to do, if there are any notable achievements that have been achieved beyond graduation. I know I've seen a lot of your seniors back, and that's a great thing to have them return, and we always want to encourage the engagement of our alumni, and certainly your program fosters that.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I appreciate that, and I think that's truly important to have the alumni come and give back, and if nothing else, just support again. This group has been, the backbone of the last couple of years, obviously with the shutdown of COVID-19. Last year's seniors as well as this year's seniors are kind of instrumental to getting over that hump and getting to that new normal. And Tom Smith, Jason Turcio, and Melissa Pajoli have all played a major role in that. Melissa is the backbone of our team in the classroom. She's a Macaulay Honor student, 3.9 GPA, computer science, has a couple job offers already. So that's tremendous. And Tom and Jason both graduating. One's in psychology, I believe the other's in business. And, they've set the standard both in the classroom and the pool. The team spirit that they all offer and the camaraderie and the family aspect, we're really going to miss them. But with that, it's always bittersweet because you do see them go on to that next step. So, when they graduate in May, I'm sure we'll have some updates on that. But we've also had a lot of alumni come back to the meets, as Joe just mentioned. We have, Nolan Reese has been around a lot, helping out. Derek Villa, a former coach and alumni, has been around a lot. Naomi Gadji, a former swimmer, just actually got her doctorate degree from the CUNY Graduate Center, and it's just amazing to see them go on and use some of the things that we here at CSI taught them, and come back and tell their story or support, and it just feels really good. Not just that, obviously, that athletic success or that pool success, but to see them take some of the lessons they learn, graduate, apply them to real life, and kind of grow up right before our eyes. So that's always a good feeling.
Funny story about Derek before my next
Absolutely.
question. A few years ago, staff Christmas party, they're trying to get me to sing karaoke.
Of course.
They underestimated my resolve. That didn't happen. Now, Derek was seated to my left, and we were talking while this was going on. Derek informed me that he was never asked to sing karaoke, and he got away with it. He was flying under the radar for several years. Now that he's no longer poolside at each and every meet, I thought I could out him now.
Yeah.
That he's now gotten away with it. Derek did not have to sing karaoke at the Christmas party under any circumstances. He was happy about that. I was a bit bitter because they were harassing me to get up there. But my next question is about academic success. Your team has had a lot of success in the classroom. You touched on some of that. How do you foster that culture with your team, and how important is that to the program?
Yeah, I think what really leads the way is the honors program the college can offer, whether that's Verrazano honors or Macaulay honors. I think whether they come in those programs or not, there's always the opportunity to then get into Verrazano honors. And I think having the team goal of a 3.0 GPA, which then makes them eligible for an honors college, is tremendously important. And we've done a great job. Those honors program has been the backbone, and they give us the support we need. They're, both those offices are great. But it feels, to have that success as student athletes, obviously, I couldn't be more proud, and it truly shows their in-classroom work. It does transpire into the pool, because, they don't miss class, they do the work they have to do, and they don't miss practice, they do the work they have to do. It all goes hand in hand, and it really helps them post-grad life. And this semester, the women's team was the highest GPA. The men's team tied with softball, so we're going to challenge them a little bit. But
you might want to look into the camera for that one.
Yeah, so we'll have a little friendly competition going on, but all of our student athletes do a great job, and I think at the end of the day, we all know that's why they're here. So I think for every team, it shows that that's the ultimate goal, and it's always fun, seeing the success. So
our team's competing both in the classroom and in the pool. Next up for your team after tonight, the show is being recorded the day of CSI's final home meet of the season. You have one more big meet looming, a 4-day meet, the Metropolitan Swimming and Diving Championship. We will have coverage of that meet. What do the viewers have to look forward to at the Mets Championship this year from your team and overall from the event?
Yeah, I think we're really going to make a splash, no pun intended, in our relays, our men's relays, a couple individual events. I think Jordan has a chance to finish top 3 in women's 1-meter diving. So it's one of the best experiences for the swimmers and divers is that 4-day meet at Rutgers. It's a lot of back and forth, morning, night for 4 days, but you kind of see the team bond before your eyes because they're together in what feels like 8 days because of the double sessions. But please tune in. Joe's going to be streaming that event. He does a tremendous job. He killed it last season. We have a lot of fans looking forward to that.
We certainly do.
So I thank him for doing that and taking part in that and being able to stream our meet. So I hope you guys could all tune in.
Definitely tune in. And if you can, attend the meet. Yeah. The atmosphere in that building was like none other in any venue I've ever covered. And they didn't allow fans last year. That was just the team. So it should be a raucous atmosphere this year. I know I'm looking forward to it. Mike, thanks for coming on. We're all looking forward to that meet. We appreciate your time here on the Dolphin Pod. He has a meet to prepare for tonight. The Dolphins close the season against USMMA and Kane University this evening at the Tank. If you're tuning into our exclusive preview of this episode, you are watching just ahead of that meet, and we'll turn it over to our coverage of CSI's final home meet of the season right now. If you're watching on our CSI Sportsnet YouTube page, we will send you to the end of our show. This is episode 4 of the Dolphin Pod, a CSIDolphins.com and CSI Sportsnet exclusive. And welcome back to the Dolphin Pod. This has been episode 4 of our show. My name is Joe Foreman, your host. And as always, remember, you can catch every episode of the Dolphin Pod over at csidolphins.com in audio format and in video format now on the CSI Sportsnet YouTube page. On our next episode, we expect to be joined by the head of our CSI esports program, Alberto Sanchez. So be sure to tune in for that coming up in the next few weeks. Until then, as always, thanks for watching, and this is the Dolphin Pod, the official CSI Athletics podcast.